Hi everyone, it's Raina. So this video is if you have your Sun in Cancer and Capricorn rising. Cancer and Capricorn are opposite signs, so they form what is known as an opposition, a tense aspect, where two points are 180 degrees apart or thereabouts. They give a little bit of leeway of exactly how far apart they have to be. And some of you will not actually have an opposition between your sun and rising because of the degrees. But I think that the dynamic will still be in play because of what these two signs represent. So Cancer rules the fourth house of home and family in astrology. So it's all about the domestic side of life. And Cancer is the mother, the nurturer, the fourth house is your home or your residence, where you go to feel safe, to be away from the world, your nest. You could call it your nest, your childhood, your family of origin, the past. And the 10th house is the house of career, and that's what Capricorn represents. And you could look at the 10th house as your future, I guess, because it can be all of your aspirations, what you came here to do, the success that you have, the status that you have attained by your accomplishments in life. And so that is something that is kind of like in the world because it's on the top of the chart, the 10th house, and therefore other people can see you. You form a reputation through these activities, and it puts you out there. The 7th through the 12th houses are considered public houses. The first 6 houses are considered personal houses, and then the last 6 are considered public houses because they involve other people. Although some of them I'm not so sure about, like the 8th house and the 12th house. They don't seem very public to me. But in any case, I'm just parroting what I have read. And so that can be, this opposition that I'm speaking of can be like a seesaw, because an opposition can be like going back and forth, like vacillating, maybe between two things and not feeling that sense of integration. So an example would be a person who dedicates themselves to their career, and yet in the back of their mind they want a family, they want to start a family, but they have been such a workaholic and so ambitious that they don't even have time for a personal life. But it's always kind of lurking in the back of their mind. Both of these signs are traditional. So it's a natural that somebody who has this combination is going to be family oriented. Whether or not they actually have children, that could be a different story. But let's talk about the specifics of this, because the sun happens to be in Cancer, and that means that if we knew nothing else about a person's astrology, knowing their sun sign can tell us a lot about their desires, their core personality traits, and whatnot. And so with Cancer, this can be a person who wants to be a parent at some point in their life. That doesn't mean that all Cancer people achieve that goal, but it can certainly be something that they feel that they want. Because of this, the person may be torn if they do have a career, because they feel like they're never going to have this thing that they want more than anything else. Because I'm not saying that if you have your sun in Cancer, you can't have a successful career, or that you won't want one. You can totally have one. It just might be that at some point you feel a very strong calling to be a parent. Or if you are involved with someone and they have a child, you take over that role as a step parent, surrogate parent. And that becomes super important to you. The rising sign is our demeanor, I think our conditioning from childhood, which creates this facade sometimes when it isn't really who we are. And I call it a defense mechanism. And it can be how we behave with other people. With Capricorn, the rulership is Saturn. So whatever your rising sign's ruler, that is your ruler. You can also say the sun sign is your ruler too. You know, you've probably heard astrologers do that on their videos. So your ruler could also be seen as the moon. But technically for your natal chart, your ruler is Saturn. And Saturn can be quite cold and restricted or restrictive. And it could very well be that when you're a child, you came into a family, into a situation that felt very austere, that felt very cold. Maybe you really developed this idea that you were, that you had to take care of yourself, that nobody was going to do that for you. And so what can happen in those cases is that the person can really develop this sense of resourcefulness if they have Capricorn rising. But it can almost be this lonely thing where the person feels isolated from others. And it can be the way that they carry themselves, which can be kind of like, I don't need anybody, I don't need anything, but really, in truth, they are a Cancer. And Cancer is a water sign. And Cancer has a lot of love to give, but it's also very wanting of love. So you might have developed this very hard shell. And by the way, Cancer is also hypersensitive. I always have observed Cancer as a sign that can dish it out, but they can't take it. And it's almost kind of funny. I mean, sometimes Cancers can be quite, I was going to say snarky. If a Cancer Sun person is sarcastic, you can best believe that they have a Gemini inner planet, like maybe they have Mercury in Gemini or something like that. And because Gemini is right next to Cancer, and your moon sign and your rising sign can be anything. It's not dependent on its position, you know, next to the sun. So, because they are very fast moving compared to some of these other placements. So, there are definitely Cancer people that are quite sarcastic, but in general, there's just this aggressive quality with Cancer, even though it's a water sign, because it is a cardinal sign, and Cancer people can really go after this desire for love, but by the same token, they have that little bit of a zing sometimes when they're dealing with other people. But there's also this closed-in feeling when you have Capricorn rising. So the person learns how to endure disappointments, emotional disappointments in life, and rely on themselves. And it can lead sometimes to being, to having a hard time being able to open up and maybe trust, because there's always going to be that feeling that somebody will let them down, somebody will not show up for them in some way because maybe their parents didn't do so. So, um, usually, what this person will do with Capricorn rising is create a persona that is very competent, very professional. The person may even work from an early age, feel that desire to be productive, to be ambitious, especially if they have come from a situation of lack where they weren't able to get some of their needs met on a material level. They will be very motivated to do this because Cancer is a very security minded sign, and Capricorn is naturally hardworking with the Saturn connection and wanting to rise and station in life. And so this is a double cardinal placement, and it really does pretty much assure success if the person decides that that's what they want. And usually it's not so much, I think, with a Cancer sun that the person's looking for success. It's more like safety, security. When you're younger, you may have that really real drive for ambition, though. I do think that that could happen. You may even feel frustrated that people don't see that caring side of yourself and not even realize that you are throwing up that guarded or I don't know if guarded is the right word, but it's just this kind of a wall that you have maybe constructed from past hurt, but also from taking care of yourself and trying to better yourself. And so you may even be quite shy because both of these are feminine signs, and feminine signs tend to be introverted and low key. Um, Capricorn rising is certainly not Leo rising, something more flamboyant, and you're happy to be in the backdrop. You're not looking for attention. Of course, with the sun in Cancer, you may very well have inner planets in Leo, which is an adjacent sign. So you might have Mars in Leo. That could definitely overshadow things and make you more attention seeking. So I can't say something like that across the board. But in any case, it could be quite interesting how you um, perceive yourself versus how other people perceive you, which is how this the ascendant, you know, what it's all about. Now, speaking of the ascendant, it can also be the way that the person looks and dresses. Capricorns, and I've seen this even with sun signs, by the way, that the appearance can be affected by the sun sign. It's not all the rising sign. I think more like the dress would be more of the rising sign, but even the physical attributes I've seen with sun signs. For instance, Aries sun signs who have red hair um, and freckles or whatever. And with Cancer, that would be the moon face. If you have ever seen Linda Ronstadt and how she looked, she has a very round face. Now, when she was younger, I think a lot of people, women, let's say, who have this round face, they may try to dye it because they want their face to be more like they oval or whatever. But then that can lead to, uh, you have to be careful. It can uh, lead to disordered eating. So the point is that the roundness of the face or retaining fluids, being water, and so making the body seem more fuller in a sense. Not necessarily overweight, but not, bone thin, that kind of thing. But specifically with Capricorn, the reason I was saying all of this about the sun sign is because I've seen this with Capricorn sun signs. For instance, Marlene, was her name Marlena Dietrich or Marlene? Yeah, I think it was Marlena. She had high cheekbones. David Bowie had high cheekbones, both Capricorns. So that seems to be a thing with Capricorn. So the rising sign could show this as well. And I think that's because Capricorn rules structures, including, the skeletal system, the body. So that sense of, because of Saturn being structure. So the face, having this great bone structure, could be one of your physical signatures. Also, being conservative. But I think Capricorn has great taste in clothing. I've always said that. Some people, they dress for business attire and it's just kind of like boring or yuck in some way. But Capricorns always manage to make it very stylish. And that's another thing, thinking of somebody like David Bowie, who, when he started out in the early 70s, when he really became well known, he was into the glam rock kind of a thing. So his style of dressing was indicative of that, or glitter rock or something like that. But later on, you would always see him or frequently see him in suits and, that tailored look. And that is classic Capricorn. Capricorns have a disdain for trends. They are very much about things that have stood the test of time. So classic clothing lines, some clean lines, nothing cluttered, nothing too overly done. That is the style of Capricorn. And I think it can make for men and women who are very dapper dressers, whether they're dressing for work or for play. And by the way, I could totally see this combination even when they're on their off hours dressing up, not wanting to be seen in sweatpants and a t-shirt or something like that. So, and this conservative attitude. So, in other words, women that don't show too much skin. I'm sure if I thought about some Capricorn women, uh, I'm thinking of one. I'm not going to mention this person because they're way too new on the scene and it just would be crazy for me to mention them. But it's just like typically the women want to dress more, especially also with the Cancer too, not just with the Capricorn. They just want to be more traditional and less overtly sexual, which is what showing skin is all about. And drawing attention to themselves. That's another reason why they're not necessarily trying to do that. Again, if you have Mars in Leo, you might be more attention seeking. I will say that. So, in terms of the type of professions that you may favor, anything that has to do with nurturing people is a given. So, I would say the healthcare field for sure. Being a nurse knows that phoneme, nurturing nurse, taking care of others. And, I just thought of something, not just like somebody working in a hospital, but maybe you work in a nursing home and you're taking care of the elderly because your ruler being Saturn, Saturn is father time. It deals with old age. And this combination may worry about their old age and think, what's going to happen when I get to be older? And so this is a very good combination for saving money. This can be a very frugal combination. You are, obviously other factors may modify this. I mean, your Venus in Leo, you might be very generous with people that you love. whatever. But in general, maybe you have a moon sign in Taurus and you go for retail therapy when you feel kind of out of sorts, you buy yourself something. But in general, I think that this is a really strong combination for saving money, having an inherent knowledge of money and how to make it grow for you over time, that being the dictate of Saturn, and just the ability to. Capricorn's motto is I save or I conserve. And we think about the term conservative, it's really about kind of retaining our energy in all ways. So, including spending habits, in other words. So, I think that having said that, that can bode very well for financial security as well as career success. I do think that it's possible that if you are somebody who decides, maybe you have a career and then you decide that you want to start a family, that you end up staying home and raising your children. One main concern can be that you don't want your children to be exposed to the type of values or lack thereof that you see. So that traditional kind of way of looking at the world may extend to your ideas of what society should be like. And when I say words like conservative or progressive or things like that, people tend to latch on to political parties, which is a mistake because there are people who are, you know, liberal. Maybe they're liberal in terms of fiscal policies and they're conservative in terms of social policies and vice versa. Like libertarians, a lot of people who consider themselves progressive would say that libertarians are far right based on certain aspects of their philosophical, their political belief system. But in truth, libertarians are socially radical. They don't want laws, a lot of laws governing people. So they're very liberal in that sense. They might be fiscally conservative, but liberal, socially liberal. Without putting people into boxes, I just think that there's a trend for this combination to really believe that what has been a tradition in society is fine. It's like if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And of course, that is a bit simplistic for me to characterize it that way because we could argue that there's a lot that's broke and that we do need to fix things. But I'm just talking about the overall attitude. You may favor anything with a financial angle to it. You might be a great investment banker. I could see this combination being an accountant because being a double cardinal sign, you're what's known as a self-starter. You don't need somebody to tell you what to do. So it's natural for you to work for yourself. And the only thing that might stop you is that the Capricorn part of yourself may favor structures. So something that has already been established rather than you creating it anew. You might have an over appreciation for what has already come before, and that makes you more prone. Like, for instance, Capricorn can be working for the government or something like that. I do want to note, though, that the rising sign, I would not factor into somebody's job choices. I'm just talking about maybe how the person has been programmed to believe that they should have certain things or that they should want certain things. And then with the Cancer, it's that job security. So if you work for yourself, obviously you have to gain your own client base, and it's not necessarily that easy. It's not necessarily that consistent. And this combination might not be in love with that. So it all depends. But you definitely could have that side to yourself that would be very good with money, including doing it for a living. Um, if it was something with business, I could see you either having a daycare service in your home, or that you, and maybe if you have your own children that you're raising, that's the perfect combination for a home business because you're just taking care of more kids while and your child gets playmates. But in addition to that, Cancer, I think, rules the stomach and food as it pertains to, nurturing others, taking care of others. So maybe a restaurant. I think a lot of Cancers love to cook. That's part of the domestic arts. So that could be something that you parlay into a business. So, anyway, and by the way, I can see when I talk about traditions, even like ethnic traditions. So, I live in the Chicago area, and Chicago is known as a food destination across the country, if not the world, um, because there's so many diverse cuisines representing different countries throughout the world from immigrants who have come from those countries and brought their cooking with them. And that's another aspect of it. The Cancer rules a genealogy, studying your family tree. So Cancer people can be very aware, even if they're like not first generation, or I don't know, I never know. It's first generation, the children of immigrants, whatever. That's what I'm referring to. Even if you're a child of an immigrant or even further back, you may research the cuisine of your nationality, or not nationality, your what do you call it? Ethnic makeup. I can't think of the proper word because I just woke up. And let's say I was going to joke because I'm actually half Puerto Rican and half Irish, but I was going to mention Irish cooking because I was going to say something not so nice about it because there's a reason that there are not Irish restaurants in the United States. I mean, serving Irish food. When I was, I can't remember how old I was. I think I was about 13 or 14. For my birthday, we went to an Irish restaurant, um, and which I think has long since closed down. And they had some delicacies like blood sausage and blood pudding. Yummers. I remember very little of that meal, to be honest with you, but there is not much that I can think of that has survived. That in the United States we actually eat that is specifically Irish or even English. To be honest with you, Yorkshire pudding. That isn't something I am too familiar with, but yeah. So, um, these kinds of things can be like the catalyst for you to maybe honor your ethnicity through a restaurant and serve that kind of food. Um, but anyway, talking about love, you are very traditional, so the chance of this combination shacking up with somebody, living together, are probably slim to none. There might be, I could kind of see if you have been divorced and you have been, especially, I shouldn't say especially if you're a man, because depending on how old you are, the women may actually earn more money than the men. I would say much older, maybe over the age of 50, this would be more accurate, that if this combination got divorced and you got taken to the cleaners, that you might say, never again will I get married. Because money has a funny way of kind of trumping other types of traditional ideas. It's kind of funny how that works out. But yeah, in general, you're going to want to get married. You're going to want that certificate and even that, maybe that church wedding, everything that kind of, especially for the Cancer in you, that wants to let everybody know that your partner is taken. They're off the market. Because there is a bit of, I would call it possessiveness with Cancer in particular. Just those claws of the crab that cling to people. And you are devoted, and you are going to be somebody that loves to take care of your partner, to baby them, and to, build a family with. If for some reason maybe you had a traumatic childhood and having children is just not on the radar for you, you might have fur babies, something that you can take care of, that you can feel that your home is filled with love, and because that's what you want at the end of the day. Okay, that's what I have for you. I hope that this resonated. If you would like a private reading, the link is below. Take care. Bye.